Hi to all of you. My name is Lori Miller, and I'm a waitress. Today, I would like to talk to all of you about an issue that is very close to my heart: raising the minimum wage for tip workers. The national minimum wage for tip workers is almost criminally low and hasn't been raised for more than 20 years. And while the minimum for tip workers is higher in some states like New York, it is still far too low to provide a living wage. Currently, the minimum federal wage for tip workers is $2.13 an hour. Think about that for a minute. If one were to work 40 hours a week, that would be just about $85 a week. Now, who could live on $85 a week? You really can't. That means that tip workers have not had a federal wage increase in 24 years. It was customary to raise the tip minimum wage in proportion to the rise in the minimum wage. But starting in 1994, congressional Republicans refused to raise the minimum wage. Imagine if you had not had a wage increase in 24 years. It's very difficult for people to make it, and we need a raise. The prices of everything has risen. Food is more expensive, the cost of cars, heating, housing costs, generally everything you can think of. Don't get me going on the cost of utilities like heating and electricity. I mean, those prices have just went up so much, and it's so hard for a tip worker to pay all that on what we make. Currently, some states provide a higher minimum tip wage. For example, in New York State, the tip wage is $5 an hour, and is scheduled to be raised. It's supposed to be raised to $7.50 an hour in December. The tip wage was supposed to be supplemented by the minimum wage. According to the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act, if tipped income fell below the minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, the employer is required to make up the difference. However, this law is not generally enforced. Thus, a 2009 report by the U.S. Department of Labor's Bureau of Labor Statistics concluded that almost 2.6 million Americans were being paid below the federal minimum wage. I want to present two major arguments for raising the minimum wage for tip workers. The first is a kind of moral argument. Based on our shared idea of the dignity of work. The second is a more practical economic one. The higher wage, rather than leading to a job loss, actually is a major benefit to the economy. Our society places a high value on work. Having a job is considered an important source of merit. We look down on those who are unemployed and who don't seem to get a job. This moral principle has been written into the welfare system. When Bill Clinton claimed to end welfare as we know it, he created requirements that welfare recipients work and try the work. He did not, however, end welfare, as create a new class of welfare: the working poor. Welfare never has just been a handout to lazy people, as some want to argue, but today most welfare payments go to the working poor. In effect, the taxpayers are subsidizing businesses who pay low wages. Some are big businesses like McDonald's and Walmart. These are some of the most profitable businesses in the nation. But we also subsidize many small businesses that hire low-wage tip workers. If we really value work and work ethic in our society, we ought to respect and not punish those who work and make sure that they can earn a living wage. If we pay wages for work that don't allow them enough to live in a reasonable life to pay the mortgage or rent, food, everyone needs to buy clothes and needs a car and needs to put gas in the car. We need to cover the basic expenses. We tell members of our society that we don't respect them. Why should someone who works 30 hours or more a week have to resort to food stamps? We seem to be sending a mixed message to low-wage workers. You have to work to get aid, but we will punish you if you work by giving you a substandard wage. Today's society is taking on more and more punitive attitudes toward the poor and working poor. We regard them as children or moral leeches and try to tell them how they should spend their money, whom the real problem is not that they are irrational, but they are poor. Providing a living wage for all workers would solve the problem and end mixed messages we send. It would make work worthwhile and more dignified. While there is some support for raising the minimum wage for tip workers, the idea that tip workers should get a raise is something that is met with skepticism. As a waitress, people often think I make a fortune, and this is not true. Yes, some days we have great days. I mean, you might make $150 to $200 on a good day, and then the next day you might have a bad day and make $20. So you can never really count on a certain amount every day. Every day is different. According to the website, the median income for restaurant servers is just $8.82 an hour. Since the New York State minimum wage is going up to $8.75 an hour, that is basically even with our state's minimum wage. Tip workers are more than twice as likely to fall under the federal poverty line and nearly 3 times as likely to rely on food stamps. Some people also think that waitresses and tip workers and all low-wage work is casual. They think that it is mostly done by high school or college kids or people who need a little extra money. Grant you, we have a lot of college students where I work, but some people make a career out of it. Not college isn't for everyone, and some people are happy doing that, but we don't make enough money. If this was true, it's no longer true today. With the decline of industrial and middle-class jobs, more and more working people rely on low-wage service sector jobs for all of their income. Most tip workers are not kids. The vast majority are adults, and 55% are women who are already paid less than men. A second objection often comes from restaurant owners and business interests. They think that they cannot absorb the increased costs. They will have to raise prices for meals and fire staff. This argument does not seem to be true. The federal government site notes that in states with the highest tipped wages had the greatest growth in a restaurant sector in California, where the tip wage minimum is over $9. Restaurant sector growth was strong. More generally, the same paper notes the majority of economic studies show no job loss and some job growth when the minimum wage was raised. The reason why a raise in minimum wages for tip workers and all low-wage workers is a good thing is easy to see if you think about it. Far from leading to job cuts, a rise in wages leads to an increase in economic demand. Those who work on tip wages do not have a lot of income to put into savings. They will spend that money immediately and mostly into the local economy. They will buy more food and clothing at local stores, and they may buy a new washing machine that they've been needing for some time at a local store. The owners of these stores make more money and can hire more workers to give their workers raises. Those people spend more too and may even be able to afford a meal in a local restaurant. In addition, the demand for goods that people make, like washers, cars, etc., might be increased, and that will create more jobs. Most of the critics of the Minimum Wage Act is that the economy were static and demand is fixed. Thus, if you win, they lose. But demand changes and grows, and if wages for the lowest vector increases, most people will benefit. This is especially true in today's situation. Most economics think that flat demand is a problem because the wages of most people have stayed the same or even shrunk, taking inflation into account. The lack of demand for goods is keeping the economy in a slow mode, even if it is improving somewhat. The benefits of the economy has gone almost entirely to the most wealthy, and they often say it or buy luxury goods, which do not benefit the economy as much as lower income consumer spending. An increase in wages would certainly help the economy. Thank you.